Hello, hello, hello. It is Tammy with Cheers to Creativity, and I'm very, very close. So sorry. We are going to get ready to paint Gilbert. I need to just take care of a couple little small housekeeping things here first. There we go. All right, and a couple things. One, I always recommend that you watch this all the way through first. I think you can learn a lot just kind of watching, and then that way you go back and you use the replay, and you're able to start and stop at your pace. Sometimes I paint things faster than others, and some things I don't, and sometimes I can't find us. So I'm trying to pull your comments up on my iPad right now. I'm trying to pull. Look, I found us. Hey, so that's awesome. I'm not even sure I'm in our group, but let's hope we are. So if you are popping on, please say hello. This is making me a tad nervous. Hang on one sec. Oh, there it says I'm in Gilbert. Okay, great. I love Facebook. I really do. Hey, there's Kim. I know Kim was signed up for this, so I feel better. Okay, so starting from the top. I always recommend you watch this all the way through first. I think you learn a lot that way, and I think then you get to go back and use the replay and start and stop at your own pace. I did this lovely piece originally on a cutout at a painting convention. Here he is. And this is Gilbert. And some of you may have actually gotten the piece Gilbert, and the tracing lines are already on there. If you don't have it and you're doing it on canvas, that's absolutely fine too. This is him done on an 11 by 14 canvas. And this is the exact size tracer that I gave you. I gave you a couple of them actually, but if you're going to do them on something that is not a cutout, you probably are going to have a background, so we'll have a background to deal with too. If you're doing the cutout, you don't have a background, so that's the part where you get to go and have a sip of your drink or whatever it might be. So that's that. The class replay will be posted as soon as this is done, and then it'll stay up for 30 days. At 30 days, I will go back and I will remove the video, and I will most likely remove the tracer and any other details that were there too. That is out of courtesy for you and for me, but for you because you paid me to do this class, and I don't want this to have any Facebook changes all the time for all of a sudden somebody else to be able to come in this group and see it. So that's why I remove the videos after 30 days. Okay, so this is Gilbert, and I'm going to put you down and we are going to get started. I gave you a basic list of colors, and you can change up anything you want, but I want to just go over them really quickly with you. So I said if I had a background to do like this one, I used Prussian blue, and I came in when it was wet, or when I was cleaning it up a bit, and I added just a little bit of metallic, and that was the zinc metallic. For that moon, I kind of forgot it on the first go round, but I came back and told you that that main moon is a dusty blue color, okay? This happens to be Williamsburg blue, but there's others. Colonial blue would work. Just any blue that we can make a little dusty, or we can make our own. We can take a blue and lighten it up and add a little gray to it. That's going to be the main emphasis of our moon, and then we'll just be adding some lighter areas to that too, with basically white added to that color. I said his nose was a warm beige color. Let me find warm beige. It's warm beige. It's just a fleshy color. If you don't have a fleshy color and you have something like a raw sienna, we can mix white with that, or even using a brown and adding white, and maybe adding just a touch of orange or a red to give it more of a flesh tone, okay? When it came to his little shoes and the stripes on his hat, I chose to do those the same colors, and mine are kind of a lavender and a purple. If you don't have varying shades, just start with a dark color like this purple, and we can add white to it to make a medium and a light value, okay? And besides which, a lot of his shading is actually done with a little black, no problem. I chose on this guy to make his hat band a little more vibrant, so I used sour apple. It can, again, be any color. And honestly, when I did my cutout, I wasn't paying attention. And mine ended up kind of being more of a grayish color, and I just highlighted it with that brighter green color, okay? So that takes us through our main colors except for our pumpkin. And our pumpkin can be any shade of orange that you want. I know mine ended up being a mix of colors. And even on this one, I used the bright orange and a little bit of orange flame. But really all you need is 8 orange, because we can do most of it shading with brown, and we can do a little highlighting either with a yellow, if you have one, or we can just add some white to it. Not a problem at all. So that kind of covers our main colors. The little buckle, I did base coat mine with a yellow to begin with. I actually did more like of an antique gold, and then I came back with a metallic on top of it. So I think that covers most of that to get started. Let me just see if I can find everybody. There we are. All right, so I'm going to put you down. I've done him on a canvas, and I've done him on the cutout. And I will be pulling those up occasionally to show you references of them. But I'm going to put you down. I'm just painting him on my multimedia pad for tonight. Let me see what we've got. Oh, I know a couple other things that you might want. You don't have to have them, but if you have a sponge, like a sea sponge, or even just like a little household sponge, that can be a fun way to do the moon. I'm going to show you how to do the texture in the moon just using a paper towel. So you're going to need like a scrunchy up part of a paper towel when we get to that point. Okay. I want to, right before we start, so I don't forget, I'm going to show you 2 upcoming classes just so you see them, so you know that what's coming up. This is Meet Me Under the Mistletoe. If you go to the Cheers to Creativity page, you can find the post that has it on. It has not been created as an event yet. I will, but he's coming up, I want to say the 20-something of August. And then at the end of August, going into September, let me flip this, we will be doing the sisters. And the sisters are these witches. And I've done mine with 3, but we can always add another. We can just keep adding on to those witches if we wanted to. The tracer will be for 3, but we could always just retrace one of them and add it on if you needed to. Okay. Again, here is my Gilbert that I've just transferred the pattern on to my multimedia pad. Most of the time I do like to put a border around mine, but I'm just not going to worry about it for this one tonight. So whether we are dealing with a canvas or dealing with a cutout, we're going to start with the moon. So if you haven't put all of your detail pattern on, don't worry about it. Right now, you just really want to make sure you have your moon. And we're going to start with either using, I think we'll just, if you have a scruffy brush, that's what I kind of call a well-loved, possibly abused brush. Something that might look a bit like this. That's kind of what I like to work with to begin with. And I'm going to pick up that Williamsburg blue. And on my plate, let me get a clean plate here. My plate, I'm going to have some Williamsburg blue. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have a little white. And then you're either going to want a little black or maybe even a little bit of that zinc if you have it. So the idea is that if you just look at this as it is on this plate, we have a medium value, obviously a darker value, and a lighter value. That's how we get a lot of our contrast in any of our paintings, okay? So I'm not going to worry too much about him because I know I'm going to come back and base coat him. And I'm not going to worry a ton about my sky because I know I'm going to come back and do that too. So I'm just going to start, and I'm going to dampen my brush first. I'm going to pick up my blue, and I'm just going to start tapping in my blue. That might be a little too much water on there. Okay, it's okay. And I'm just going to tap it around. Not worrying if I go out my lines. Not worrying it's completely solid. This is just my main color. This is supposed to be a gnome on a blue moon. Now, if you did not want your moon to be this blue, you could certainly do the same technique I'm doing with a couple shades of orange and yellows, and it would be more of a yellowy, Halloweeny, harvesty moon. Remember, just like a pattern is a guide, a class is a way to do something. You can always vary it a bit. Okay. So here I've got my main color on my moon. Okay. I'm just going to set that brush aside for now. This is where it was fun to take a paper towel and I just kind of wet it up a little bit. Oh, I don't know where that black came from. That was not the intention. Let's not do that. Leave it to me to do something like that. Where did I get that black from? I have no idea. That was bizarre. Okay, try that again. Get back to a paper towel. I'm just taking a bit of it. I'm crumpling it up and I'm going to put it into clean water. And I'm squeezing it out. And then I'm going to kind of fluff it up a bit. Okay. And I'm going to loosely grab it. And I'm going to grab a touch of that blue first. Just to get a little bit of it on there. And then pick up some of that white. And I'm going to tap around so I have this lighter color at the edge of my moon. Okay. Don't worry again if you go a little bit into your gnome or even on your outside. You want to keep it really kind of loose. This kind of makes it look more moon-like. And again, if you didn't want a blue moon, you could certainly do the same thing with yellows and oranges. I picked up a little bit of that darker color. I'm just going to want a little bit here and there, just to be a little darker on my moon. Just think it gives it a little bit of interest. If at any point there it's too white or too dark, you would just merely go back into that light blue that you used, and you could just go back and tap it again. All right. I think I'm going to get rid of that before I get it all over me. I literally have black paint all over my leg, and I have not even used black paint today. That is part of who I am, a mess. Okay, so hopefully this gives you kind of a little texture in that moon. Come back and show you this guy. See him? He's got that texture. And I like to have him be a little darker right by the edge of my character. So this is that dirty brush I had. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of the gray, or there, I found the black. What do you know? I found my black. And I can just very lightly lay a darker bit of color right next to the gnome. It'll help him stand out a little bit more. I'm not floating this. I'm just tapping this on because my moon is still pretty wet. But that kind of helps outline him a bit. We're going to want to make sure our moon is dry before we kind of play a whole lot with our gnome or before we do much with our background. So one option, of course, is to hit it with a blow dryer. Let me just grab this moon for you to show you. No two are alike. And I bet I miss being able to have you guys looking over my shoulder. So I'm just picking this up. Let's now turn it this way. So that way, hopefully you can look at it a little closer. Okay, there we go. So we're letting this dry. I did this on paper, so it'll go quite quickly. But if you need to, you can hit it with your blow dryer. One area that's not going to be messed with a whole lot right now is his beard. And his beard, I want you to just give it a really quick base coat with gray. You can either use a premix gray, like gray sky, or you can mix your own gray with black and white. That is what I tend to do, but this happens to just be staring at me, so we're going to use it. Use whatever brush you are comfortable with. You are just filling it in and filling it in rather loosely. I don't want this to be perfect. I'd rather it kind of. But think a little bit about the shapes the shape of the beard. So you don't want him to come just straight down. He kind of has a little curve from each edge in toward it. Even if you have a desire for a straighter beard in the end, it still has a little bit of a curvature on those edges. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in this for the first time. Our beard is going to see several colors, just like I just talked to you about the moon needing a couple shades to give it a little more interest. Our beard is going to need that too. Oops. Don't worry if it's not completely solid. Just kind of get it in there. Then go ahead and rinse your brush out. It's almost dry. And we're going to go ahead and pick out an orange, any orange you want. This happens to be bright orange. And go ahead and just give your pumpkin a quick coat too. If you're doing this on the cutout, it is MDF, and sometimes it really likes to soak up the paint. So don't be surprised if when you do your gray beard, it seems to soak in. That's okay, because we're going to be doing several other coats. Especially true, I'm telling you that, as we're going to add in our orange right now for our pumpkin, because orange is a more sheer color. It doesn't have quite the opacity as like a white or a black. So you most likely are still going to see those lines that are pre-printed. That's okay. I'm just going to fill this in, and I know I'm going to give this another coat too. So while I want it to be filled in, it doesn't have to be perfect. Need a little more paint. And then I'm just going to skip back over to our background for those who need to have it done. If you don't need to have it done, don't worry about it. And you can take a little bit of a pause. Or you can look at what we're doing, and maybe you'll need it for a different project. Okay, so. Got that in. So my background, beyond my moon on my canvas, I did with that Prussian blue, any dark blue. Now this is for me wanting a dark blue sky with the idea that I could still see the blue moon. But to me, skies are more of a dark blue than they are a black. You certainly could use black as well. This is your piece. I'm just giving you an idea of what I did. Okay, so Prussian blue was the blue I used, and I am merely going to base coat around everything, with the exception of I gave my guy down here a little bit of a brown ground. Brown ground? Brown ground, okay. Different than ground. So I'm just going to put some blue out in here. And again, use whatever brush you're comfortable with. I want something that's going to cover relatively quickly. And I'm going to go right up next to the pumpkin. Right up next to my moon. I'm going to make my little line down here for my ground. I'm going to use a nice big brush around my moon, except for when I get into my little, next to my, well, maybe I can do this. It's always okay to switch to a smaller brush if you're in a smaller area that just feels a little too tight for a big brush. There would be absolutely nothing wrong with just base coating this a dark color all the way around it. I like to have a little movement in my background, so that's why I'm going to show you the next step in this background. Again, I'm just going to go right next to my moon, right next to my hat. Sometimes I have to get up in the little chisel edge of my brush to get around something. Use all sides of your brush. And I don't feel the necessity of going just straight up and down because I know I want some movement, so it's okay if I slip slap this a bit. I just went around the moon. I did not mean to get that blue dot on there, but that's okay. No mistakes, people, no mistakes. Just a few design changes along the way. And a lot of grace for me painting upside down. I'm sorry to put my hand in your way, but you know all I'm doing right now is going around the outside of this. Okay. Just about have it to the point where I can show you what I'm going to do to give it a little more interest. If this was a winter sky, I probably would be picking up some whites and slip slapping them here and there, just because we see a lot of white highlights in our winter skies with the stars and just a different sky. Okay, so I'm not going to clean my brush. I am going to pick up a little bit of that metallic zinc. And by picking it up, dirty brush, I'm just picking a little bit of it up. It's not completely loaded in any way. And I'm just going to slip slap here and there to give it a little fun interest for my sky. If I have to, like I said before, get a smaller brush to get in these smaller areas, absolutely. Otherwise, just give it a little slip slappy motion. If it gets too gray, pick up some more of your blue and go right back over it. Did not mean to get into my orange. That's okay. All right. Isn't that fun? Rinse that out. I'm just going to try to, no, if I can remove it. I did. I got most of the gray right off there. Okay. So that is basically the moon, whether you're doing it on canvas or you're doing it on the cutout. After your background is completely dry, if you wanted to actually add more of a shimmer around that moon, you could. I didn't do much of it on here, but there is more you could do to make it a little more halo-y. Okay, so we've base coated our beard. We've given our pumpkin our first coat. We're going to get rid of these little blue spots that I wasn't planning on. That's okay. So you're going to choose the color of your feet and your stripes on your hat. If you need to put that pattern on, by all means do, but I think we can probably fake it pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and use the lavender for my feet and for my stripes. And for right now, I am just going to base coat those in. So I'm going to clean the brush out that I had the orange in, and I'm just going to base coat these in. Now, if you don't have the shades, remember you could just add white to your darker purple. I wasn't sure what these were when I first painted this piece, but it kind of looks more like it when I got it done. That these are like his little feet sticking out on the sides of the pumpkin. With a pencil, or even just using the chisel edge of your brush and maybe a little black paint, if you have some, you might want to take a quick peek at that pattern or look here as we're getting ready to look at his hat. So this part kind of comes up and around his nose, and that's actually his hat band, or the brim of his hat. I'm so sorry. And then the hat band kind of comes about there, in case you're making that a different color. And then you start playing with your stripes. And you can make them a width of a brush, or you can just kind of guess. And if you want, you can actually kind of lay it down. I think they curve a little bit as they go around the hat. And you're going to fill in some of them with black, some of them with the lavender, but we don't have the black right now. So for me, this is my hat band. This is going to be black. Where did my lavender go? So hat band, black, lavender, black, lavender, black, lavender. So I'm just going to fill those in. And while those are still a little on the wet side, I'm going to pick up the darker version for me, which is my dioxide purple. Picking up a little bit of that color on the edge, and I'm just going to pull it in toward the center. And on my feet, I'm just going to pull a little color next to where his beard is. I can even go all the way around with it if I know I want to be adding some black shading too. So I'm not going to clean my brush out. I'm going to wipe it off. I am going to pick up a tiny bit of black, and I'm just picking it on the little corner of my brush. And I'm going to set it down a couple places on my paper plate so it blends. And with that darker color, I'm going to go a little darker right at his heel. And a little bit as he is next to the beard up here. If you want, you can even pull a little of that darker color right on the edge of the stripes on your hat. Just a tiny bit. Go ahead and rinse or wash your brush out, and then go straight into your black, and let's fill in the brim of his hat. Go around his nose. I'm going to need more paint. Remember, this next section here is actually the trim of his hat, so it shouldn't probably be black. So we'll skip that section. We'll go up here and we'll make the next stripe of his hat this black color. So I did him as a cutout to begin with, and then I did him on a canvas. What else I could do him on? I think he might be really cute as a treat bucket for Halloween. So maybe just on a galvanized bucket. Remember, you can always switch down to a smaller brush. I'm going to wipe that brush so I have a nice chisel edge, and I'm just going to connect all the way around. Cool, cool, cool. All right. While I have this black, before I rinse it out completely, I'm going to pick up a little of the gray I had. Here's my gray. And I'm just going to make a darker gray. And I have a little bit of a darker gray under his nose. And I'm going to pull a couple darker gray streaks down into his beard. I'm rinsing my brush, sort of rinsing my brush. It's still got a lot of water in it. Oops, way too much water. And I can pick up that lighter gray. So I have a variety of grays happening at the base of my beard. I am purposely waiting to do his nose until we do a couple more steps in his beard. I'm rinsing my brush. So pick a color for your hat trim, this part here. The part that I kind of made a mess of a gray on this one. And on this one I was a little more intentional and I used a brighter green. That's what I'm going to use here. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that sour apple. I'm going to fill in my hat band. Now, I think this would be really fun too, to add some neon colors or some glow-in-the-dark colors. None of these are, but it doesn't mean I might not add them before I'm over. These are just straight acrylics. Okay. I'm going to let my top part dry just a touch, and I'm going to move back down to my pumpkin. And I'm going to want to have that orange we used, but I also want to have a little bit of brown. A little bit of brown. How do I not have brown paint here? All right, you're going to use brown. I'm just picking up the only color I happen to have grabbed here, which is hopefully I can get a little bit of the cinnamon out of here. Sorry, as I pound. I would just use a regular brown, a dark chocolate, a burnt umber, but this is what's currently available in front of me. Rinse my brush out so it's good and clean. Go back and I'm going to use I'm just going to go ahead and give another coat of the orange that I used. And whether you can see the pattern from the MDF cutout, or maybe you can still see some of your pattern that you traced. Either works. And if you can't see any, we'll just make it work. So I want to make sure he's got some segments. So here he's got a little darker here, and a little darker all the way around his beard. So one way to do that is just to pick up your dark brown color. I'm not even worried about being on the side, and just kind of lay it down next to where you want to have some shading color. So I'm going to do it just underneath his shoes on each side. So I want that to be a little more shadowed under his shoe. Then I want to have a little shadowing that's going to be next to his beard. Just picking up that paint, creating a little shadowing underneath that beard. Don't worry if it's right next to it, it's okay. Then I'm going to just wipe my brush to kind of bring it to a nice chisel edge. Okay, this way. And I'm going to just going to pull a couple lines that could be a shadow line. And those are going to go away. So I'm going to go next to those lines and I'm just going to pull away, pull toward the outer edge. So pull toward the outer edge on this one. And this guy, I'm going to pull toward the outer edge on this guy. And if it starts to dry too much, we can always go back and add a little more orange to help it blend. So you got a little mark in the middle too. That's okay. We'll rinse our brush and we'll pick up either a yellow or a white. If you happen to have a yellow, I'm just going to grab this primary yellow. Should work nicely. Same thing, just get a little bit on my brush. On the opposite side, I'm going to pull a little yellow. Just pull it. On the outer edge as well. And it blends this nicely because that base color is still wet. You can always go back and strengthen areas that you'd like to be a little darker. Okay, got that going. I'm gonna go back and play with our beard a bit. Now there are all sorts of techniques to do your beard. You can do it just with a round brush. You can do it with a liner brush. You get lots of skinny things. There are specialty brushes like this one, which is called a rake brush. See how those have those sections? And this is great for making lots of little lines. This guy I did just with my round and my liner brush. Same with this one. But I'm going to show you a little bit first with this rake brush. So with a rake brush, you would have your white paint. That's the next color we're working with. I have not forgotten his nose, I promise you. And you are going to pull it out on each side, just like we do with a flat brush. But you're going to make sure that you can see all those segments. Trying to get there, okay? And then you're going to lightly press down, and you'll have lots of little lines all at one time. So that's one way to start doing a beard. This is going to be good for me to just get those first layer in. The big key with doing your beard, whether you're doing it with a round or you're doing it with a whisk brush, rake brush, is to make sure you're going to let each coat dry before you do another coat. So with that being said, we're going to let that coat dry before I come back and play with it some more with some other brushes. And I'm going to pick up just a round brush and a little white. I'm going to wipe most of it off, and I'm going to give a couple little highlights in my purple areas and my green area for my hat band. And I'm also going to go ahead and use a yellow or a gold, and I'm going to draw in a buckle on my hat, just so I can give it time to dry before I go back and add gold to it. I'm also going to grab a little bit of black or gray, and right along the side where it meets my, pull a couple little black accents on each side of that dark or that bright green. can even add a couple of those little shading marks on the inside of that buckle. All right, let's go ahead now and fill in our nose with that flesh color, whatever flesh color you have. So I'm going to use the warm beige. And this is my first coat. So I'm going to get the first coat on here, and then I'm going to come back and play with some more details. In most cases, you're going to need more than one coat of a flesh color. And that's good because that way you can get the main color down, and when we come back with the second coat, we can add the fun little detail or the shading at this point. All right, let's play some more with our beard. You can go to a round brush, you can go to a liner brush. This is going to be much more of a personal preference of what you like. Grab some more paint, I think. So here's with a round brush. So I'm going to just bring it nice in to a nice tip, and I can start laying in some broader strokes of this beard. I like getting a little wispy on my edges. Unlike a Santa, most gnomes are just dealing with beards. They're not having a mustache on top of them. That's not always true, but usually. So I've added another layer of white with this technique. And now I'm going to switch over. I think we'll let that dry for just a sec. While we're letting it dry, we will come back with our flesh and our nose. But you're going to need a dot, a tiny, tiny, tiny little dot of a red, a clean red. You will only need this for this one step, so don't give yourself a puddle. I mean, that's enough to do 25 gnomes, I promise you. So I'm going to go back and use the brush I used before, which was a round brush, and I'm going to give my nose another quick coat. Okay, so just get that color on there. While this is wet, I'm going to give him a little bit of interest on the bottom part of his nose. This one I did with a little more in the brown tones, but this guy has a little more of a blushy nose. So I've still got that in that paint in my brush. I'm going to pick up a dot, a tiny dot, and I'm going to blend this so I get more of a softer pink. And then while my nose is still wet, I'm going to lay it down at the bottom of my nose. Just going to stroke it on. If it's too pink, I can always come back and go over it with just the flesh color. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. So we'll let that nose kind of hang out for a moment, and we'll come back in with a liner brush or a thinner brush. This is just a thinner, round brush. Oh, you can go as skinny as you want. This is a little tiny skinny brush. This one should do me pretty well. I'm going to go back with my white. Might thin it down just a little bit so it flows a little better. Anytime I thin my paint, though, I always tap it onto a paper towel. And then I'm going to stay as much up in the tip as I can as I start adding in more skinnier little lines. And this is where I'm actually going to be a little more wispy and let it come out of the edge of this. Might come over onto the shoes a little bit. I do have, I think, 3 currently of the gnome cutouts left. So if it's something you would be interested in, just let me know. We can get you invoiced and I can get those sent off to you. I do like that it turned out just as cute, in my opinion, on the canvas. But it would be kind of fun to have the cutout and do that cutout and then attach it to maybe a round. Whoops. Well, I'm not sure what that black was meant to be, but we're just gonna go with it. Decide we must have needed a little darker shade there. I just love his wispy beard. All right. One thing I like to do, since I'm pretty pleased with my beard, and I swear I could play with beards all day long. So it's always kind of a good idea to take it after you've done it for a while, just kind of like set it down, walk away, come back and look at it. And that's where you might see like an area that could be a little whiter, brighter for your beard. Might need an area where you might need to touch in a little more shading. Each of us paints differently, so what I see on mine might not be at all what you see on yours. I'm going to come back right now with a metallic gold. This is Emperor's Gold. Any gold will do you. And I'm going to go over my buckle on my hat. Just because I want it to be a little more shiny and sparkly. You might need more than one coat on this. And I like to pick up a tiny bit of black just in my corners. A little bit of, call it antiquing. All right, now to make him stand out from the moon just a little more, we're going to outline him, but we're going to outline him very, very loosely. So I want you to look here. I've taken the blues and I've made them a little lighter, and I kind of loosely outlined around his feet and a little bit around his hat band and even up on the sides if you so desire. Let me show you this one as well. Did the same thing, a little outline on his hat and a little outline around his shoes. Did not outline that pumpkin. And then we'll come back and we'll add our little scary little friends. So you can even just take the blue you used for the moon and mix some white in there. Or if you'd like a little pure blue, you can lighten it up the background blue. I don't think I have any, so I think I'm going to deal with this. And again, no two are ever alike, so don't worry about it. So I'm going to stay up on the tip of my brush as much as I can. Look where you're going, not where you're at. If you need to get a little outline around your hat part, you can. I'm gonna do the same thing around my little shoes. I'm just gonna skip around here because they're already covered with hair from the beard. Then if underneath your nose has gotten a little scraggly, I'm going with a gray or a dark version of the gray. So I've got gray sky and I picked up a little bit of black. Just really, really lightly go back underneath his nose. Just gonna clean up any loose areas. And if you've got spots that are too white, you can actually come in and break them up with a little bit of this gray too. Okay, that is basically our Gilbert. We just need to have some little friends for him. So you, again, by all means, if you'd like to put your pattern back on, you may. I'm not going to. I'm just going to show you a couple quick ways to freehand those spiders and those bats. So I've got one spider on my pumpkin, and I've got a couple spiders, one by his beard and one up in his hat. That's that one. What do I have on this one? These look different, don't they? There's still one spider on his pumpkin, and I've got one up at his hat band here, and one between his foot over here for his bat. So let's do the little spider first. This little round or little liner brush. I'm going to give him a circle. And I'm going to give him another little circle for a little head. And I'm going to give him 8 legs. I'm going to give him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then I'm just going to give him a couple little dots or dashes, I'm sorry, to show that he is now connected somewhere up here. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple bats. So again, using that same little brush, do one up here on his hat band. And I'm going to do him like an oval. I'm trying to think which way he's supposed to go. Doing him upside down might be a little challenging for me, but that's okay. We're going to do him an oval, kind of an oval. Then I'm going to make him kind of like a scoop and a scoop. That's kind of like his head. Okay. His body. And then from his body, I'm going to kind of go loop, loop, and then come back down from the bottom and go loop, 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 and connect those. Hopefully that is not a copyrighted sound because I've gotten in trouble for saying some of my little ditties before. So I'm making a scoop and a scoop, and then a scoop, a scoop, and a scoop, and I'm going to connect those. And I'll outline these guys too so they stand out from that black brim. But I just basically want a couple wings, I want a body, and I want him to look like he's got pointed head. Do one more here, so we're going to start with an oval. From the oval, I'm going to go out, out, and then I'm going to make my bat wings looped, de-loop, loop, loop, back together. Point them a little more. I might have to look at him right side up because he's looking a little funky upside down. Fill him in. Clean them up a little bit. Then rinse your brush and then go back into your light blue color that you made. So the blue plus a little white. And just give them a couple little highlight marks. So up around the scoop of his head and just a couple of little lines within the little wings and maybe one down the body. Definitely want to do that if they're close to another black object. So this one I might actually want to do my wings, outline my wings on the bottom. One little slash there. And there we have them. I didn't do anything down the bottom here, but all I probably would do is pick up a little bit of brown on a flatter brush, this one here, and just make sure he is sitting on some ground. And if you want, you can pull up a little bit of grass or just pull some browns up on the chisel edge of your brush. I'm picking up a little yellow here too, just pulling a little. And there we have Gilbert. Okay, so there he is done on my multimedia pad. Just always a fun surface to practice on too. You can see those bats are going to need a little cleaning up, but that's okay. That's what happens when I do it upside down. Here he is on the cutout. And I think this cutout would be really cute too if you would do him and then maybe apply him to another circle. That could be a nice little door hanger. Or he can just hang off of his little top of his hat here. And here is the 11 by 14 canvas version. So where I used the background, and then here's the blue moon. And like I said, you could easily make that moon more of that harvesty moon with the oranges and yellows if you did not want him to be a blue moon. But it's always fun to play with both ways. All right, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. This will stay up for 30 days. And feel free to change up the colors if you don't want him to have purple stripes on him, on his hat. Maybe he could have orange stripes. You could make that pumpkin white instead of orange. So just have a little fun with him. And by all means, when you do get a chance to finish him, come back and post him in this group so we all can see what you did with your Gilbert. Hey, until I see you next time, be kind and be safe. And remember, there's other classes coming up, and we would love to have you in those as well. I will get this posted just as soon as I say bye.